You know, I don't mean to embarrass you, but I'm a rather brilliant surgeon. Perhaps I could help you with that hump.
What hump?
What happens when you take a comedy genius, put him in a castle with original Frankenstein props, and tell him to make audiences scream with laughter instead of terror? Young Frankenstein wasn't just a parody. It was perfection. These are 10 weird facts that prove Mel Brooks didn't just spoof horror. He conquered it. Fact 1. The Frankenstein Castle Connection. Young Frankenstein wasn't just filmed on any old movie set. Mel Brooks shot at the exact same castle locations used in the original 1931 Frankenstein and 1935 Bride of Frankenstein films. We're talking about the actual stone walls, the same Gothic arches, the identical creepy corridors where Boris Karloff first brought the monster to life decades earlier. Brooks didn't just want to make a parody, he wanted to resurrect the real deal. The production team tracked down original Universal Studios props that had been sitting in storage for over 40 years. That laboratory equipment, those weren't replicas. They were the genuine electrical devices that created movie magic in the 1930s. Walking onto that set wasn't just filmmaking, it was like stepping into horror movie history. Brooks understood that to properly mock something, you first had to honor it completely. Fact 2. Gene Wilder's obsession. Gene Wilder didn't just star in Young Frankenstein. He wrote the original story and protected it like a sacred text. When Mel Brooks wanted to make changes, Wilder fought him on every detail. The character names, non-negotiable. The pronunciation of Frankenstein? Wilder insisted Frederick would correct people every single time. This wasn't ego, it was artistic vision. Wilder had been obsessed with the idea for years, scribbling notes and scenes during breaks from other projects. He envisioned every character quirk, every emotional beat, every moment of the story. Brooks later admitted that Wilder's obsessive attention to detail made the film work. Without Gene's protective instincts, Young Frankenstein could have been just another comedy. Instead, it became a masterpiece because one man refused to let anyone mess with his baby. That's the difference between a joke and a classic. Fact 3. The black and white gamble. In 1974, making a black and white movie was career suicide. Color films dominated theaters, and studio executives were horrified when Mel Brooks insisted on shooting Young Frankenstein in black and white. They fought him hard, arguing it would kill box office potential and confuse audiences. Brooks didn't care. He knew that color would destroy the gothic atmosphere he needed. The film had to feel like it belonged in the same universe as the original Universal monster movies. Studio suits threatened to cut the budget, reduce distribution, even cancel the project entirely. Brooks stood his ground because he understood something they didn't. Authenticity trumps commercial safety. The black and white cinematography wasn't just a stylistic choice, it was essential to the comedy. Without it, the parody wouldn't work. The jokes needed that classic horror movie look to land properly. Sometimes the biggest risks create the biggest rewards. Fact 4. Marty Feldman's improvisation chaos. Igor wasn't just hunchbacked, he was completely unhinged, and that's exactly how Marty Feldman played him. Feldman kept breaking character, improvising scenes, and driving everyone crazy with his unpredictable antics. The famous "What hump?" scene, pure Feldman improvisation.
What hump?
He'd switch the hump from one side to the other between takes, then act confused when people mentioned it. Brooks tried to control him at first, then gave up and let the chaos happen. Feldman would ad-lib entire conversations, invent physical comedy bits on the spot, and turn simple scenes into comedic goldmines. His bulging eyes weren't just for show. They were weapons of mass destruction aimed at anyone trying to keep a straight face. The cast couldn't predict what he'd do next, which made their reactions genuine. Sometimes the best direction is no direction at all. Feldman proved that controlled chaos beats scripted perfection every time. Fact 5. The laboratory creation. The laboratory wasn't built, it was resurrected. Mel Brooks tracked down the original electrical equipment created by Kenneth Strickfaden for the 1931 Frankenstein film. These weren't props. They were functioning pieces of movie history that had been gathering dust in Universal Studios storage for over 40 years. The massive electrical generators, the crackling Tesla coils, the bubbling chemical apparatus, all of it was authentic 1930s movie magic. Strickfaden himself came out of retirement to help reassemble his creations, explaining how each piece worked and sharing stories from the original productions. When those machines fired up, they created the exact same sparks and sounds that had terrified audiences decades earlier. The laboratory scenes weren't just filmed, they were performed with vintage equipment that still worked perfectly. Brooks understood that real props create real atmosphere. You can't fake the authenticity of genuine movie history, and audiences can feel the difference. Fact 6. Chloris Leechmans' terror method. Frau Blücher wasn't acting scary. She was genuinely terrifying. Chloris Leechman took a method acting approach to the role that left the entire cast unsettled. She'd stay in character between takes, speaking in that menacing German accent and maintaining that cold, threatening demeanor that made everyone nervous. The famous horse reaction whenever her name was mentioned? Leechman insisted on that detail because she wanted audiences to feel like animals instinctively feared her presence. During filming, she'd appear silently behind actors, whisper ominous things in their ears, and create an atmosphere of genuine dread on set. Gene Wilder later admitted that Leechman's commitment to being frightening actually helped his performance because he was legitimately intimidated by her. The terror in his eyes wasn't acting, it was real fear. Sometimes the best comedy comes from authentic emotions, even when those emotions are pure, unadulterated terror. Fact 7. The putting on the Ritz. Sequence. The most beloved scene in Young Frankenstein almost died in the editing room. The Puttin' on the Ritz musical number was the most expensive sequence to film, and studio executives wanted it cut from the final version. They argued it was too long, too expensive, and too weird for audiences to accept. Brooks fought them tooth and nail, insisting the scene was essential to the film's emotional core. The sequence took days to choreograph, required elaborate staging, and pushed the budget to its limits. Peter Boyle had to learn the song, the dance moves, and maintain his monster makeup through multiple takes. When test audiences saw it, they went wild, but studio suits still wanted it gone. Brooks threatened to quit if they removed it. Good thing he won that battle because Puttin' on the Ritz became the film's most quoted, most memorable, and most beloved moment. Sometimes you have to fight for your art, even when the suits think they know better. Fact 8. Peter Boyle's transformation. Peter Boyle didn't just play the monster, he became one. The dramatic actor took a method approach to the role that surprised everyone on set. He spent hours studying Boris Karloff's original performance, learning every gesture, every movement, every subtle expression. Between takes, Boyle would stay in character, moving with that distinctive monster walk and maintaining the childlike innocence that made the character sympathetic. The makeup process took hours each day, but Boyle used that time to mentally prepare, getting into the monster's headspace. His performance balanced comedy with genuine pathos, making audiences laugh while also feeling sorry for the creature. The scene where he's abandoned after the disastrous presentation, that emotional devastation was real acting, not just comedy. Boyle understood that even in a parody, the monster needed to feel human. His commitment to finding the character's heart beneath the horror makeup elevated the entire film from simple comedy to something deeper. Fact 9. The casting near Mrs. Young Frankenstein almost had a completely different cast, and that would have changed everything. Before Marty Feldman was cast as Igor, the role was offered to several other actors who turned it down. Madeline Kahn almost didn't play Elizabeth because she was initially hesitant about the part. Gene Hackman was considered for multiple roles before the final cast was assembled. The chemistry between the final cast members was so perfect that it's hard to imagine anyone else in those roles. But it almost didn't happen. Brooks later said that getting the right combination of actors was like solving a puzzle where every piece had to fit perfectly. One wrong casting decision could have ruined the entire dynamic. Terry Garr brought exactly the right mix of innocence and sexiness to Inga. Kenneth Mars found the perfect balance of authority and absurdity as Inspector Kem. Sometimes the best casting decisions are the ones that almost didn't happen. The magic was in the chemistry, not just individual performances. Fact 10. The Oscar snub that proves Hollywood doesn't get comedy. The Academy looked at comic perfection and said, meh. Young Frankenstein received only 2 Oscar nominations: Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Sound. That's it. No directing nod for Brooks, no acting nominations for the brilliant cast, no recognition for the stunning black and white cinematography. The film lost Best Adapted Screenplay to The Godfather Part 2, which is respectable, but the lack of other nominations was insulting. Hollywood has always had a bias against comedy, treating it as lesser art than drama. Young Frankenstein proved that comedy could be just as crafted, just as meaningful, and just as technically brilliant as any serious film. The performances were flawless, the direction was masterful, and the screenplay was genius. But because it made people laugh instead of cry, the Academy ignored it. Decades later, Young Frankenstein is still quoted, still beloved, and still considered a masterpiece. Meanwhile, most of that year's serious nominees are forgotten. Sometimes the best revenge is lasting longer than your critics. Bonus fact: the sequel that never was. There's a lost sequel script that would have changed everything. In 1977, Mel Brooks actually wrote Young Frankenstein 2, and the plot was absolutely insane. Frederick Frankenstein would have traveled to Transylvania to meet Dracula, bringing his monster along for a supernatural buddy comedy. Brooks had mapped out the entire story: vampire castle locations, new characters, and elaborate set pieces that would have cost a fortune. Gene Wilder read the script and hated it. He felt a sequel would cheapen the original and refused to participate unless major changes were made. Brooks tried to convince him for months, even offering to let Wilder rewrite portions, but Gene wouldn't budge. Without his star, the project died. The script still exists somewhere in Brooks's personal archives, a tantalizing glimpse of what could have been. Some fans argue Wilder was right to protect the legacy. Others wonder what magic Brooks could have created with vampires, monsters, and that same gothic atmosphere. We'll never know, and maybe that's for the best. Young Frankenstein wasn't just a comedy, it was lightning in a bottle. From authentic props to perfect casting chaos, Brooks created something timeless. Hit that subscribe button for more Hollywood secrets, and tell us in the comments, what's your favorite Frankenstein quote? Thanks for watching, and remember, it's alive.